You keep wondering why nothing changes, why every effort feels heavy, why every victory feels empty. It's not your discipline. It's not your intelligence. It's not your willpower. The truth is simple. Without God first, every step you take will feel like walking against the wind. You can build habits, follow routines, work harder than anyone else. But if the foundation is missing, everything will eventually collapse. That's why the exhaustion doesn't leave. That's why no matter how much you achieve, something always feels incomplete. Because the order is wrong. And when God is not the first in your life, everything else gets out of alignment. In this message, I will show you what really happens when you try to build your life on human strength alone, why discipline without God eventually becomes slavery, and how everything changes the moment you place Him at the center. Stay with me until the end, because I'm not just going to tell you that you need God first. I'm going to give you a practical way to put Him first starting tomorrow morning. And once you do, the struggle won't disappear, but it will no longer defeat you. You've done everything they told you to do. You wake up early. You work harder than anyone. You check every box. And yet, deep down, you still feel empty. You collapse into bed at night, exhausted. And instead of peace, there's a silence that screams inside you. You wonder why the victories feel so small, why the progress feels so heavy, why no matter how far you go, it never feels enough. And here's the truth. Without God first, all your effort will always feel like running toward a finish line that keeps moving further away. Think about it. Look at the people around you. Some of them are disciplined. Some are ambitious. Some have built entire empires with their hands. From the outside, they look untouchable. They post the victories, the smiles, the highlight reels. But if you could see the unfiltered version of their lives, the nights they can't sleep, the mornings they wake up anxious, the emptiness that clings to their achievements, you would realize something important. The world applauds their success, but their soul is starving. And maybe this is your story too. You push harder, you plan better, you fight longer. And yet, the harder you run, the more distant peace seems. You hit the goal and immediately raise the bar higher, but the celebration lasts minutes before anxiety returns. You win a battle, but inside you feel like you're losing the war. Because discipline without God eventually becomes slavery. You're no longer leading your life. Your life is dragging you. You tell yourself you're in control, but deep down you know the truth. You're not controlling the pressure. The pressure is controlling you. You don't own your success. Your success owns you. And the reason is simple. You've built the structure, but you've ignored the foundation. You've stacked the bricks of achievement, but you forgot to anchor them to the one who gives them meaning. That's why everything feels fragile. That's why, even after progress, you feel like you're standing on sand. This is the silent exhaustion that no one talks about. People assume burnout comes only from overwork. But the most dangerous burnout comes from working without purpose. From chasing a finish line that keeps moving further away. From winning battles that don't even matter when you stop to think about them. And if you're honest, you know that's where most of your energy goes. Into things that impress others but don't satisfy you. Into things that give you applause but not peace. God didn't design you to run on human effort alone. He didn't create you to be fueled only by caffeine, deadlines, and ambition. He designed you to live connected to Him, because only in Him does your effort find meaning. Without Him, even your best victories feel hollow. With Him, even your hardest struggles carry purpose. And here's the paradox. The emptiness you feel is not a punishment. It's not God rejecting you. It's the opposite. It's God calling you. That hollow space inside, the one no achievement can fill, is proof that you were made for something greater. It's not a curse, it's a compass. It's pointing you back to the only one who can give your discipline direction, your routine meaning, your effort peace. Because without God, victory feels like defeat. Progress feels like pressure. Growth feels like grief. But with God, even the desert becomes a place of learning. Even the waiting becomes preparation. Even the struggle becomes a stepping stone. The truth is, you can keep running the same race, exhausting yourself in circles, pretending the emptiness will disappear if you just push harder. Or you can stop, listen to what that silence inside is trying to tell you, and finally admit, I can't do this alone. I wasn't created to. And that's the shift. That's the moment discipline transforms from slavery into freedom. That's the moment effort stops draining you and starts shaping you. Not because life becomes easy, but because life finally has order. And the first piece of that order is putting God at the center. We live in a world obsessed with control. You're told that if you just manage your time better, if you optimize your routines, if you discipline your body and sharpen your mind, everything will finally fall into place. And so you try. You download apps, you create schedules, you set alarms, you chase after the perfect balance. For a while, it even looks like it's working. On the outside, people admire your structure, your consistency, your drive. But late at night, when it's only you and your thoughts, you realize something disturbing. Even when everything looks controlled, your soul still feels chaotic. That's because control without God is an illusion. You can order your desk, but your mind stays cluttered. You can manage your hours, but your heart remains restless. You can silence the noise outside, but you can't quiet the storm within. The truth is, you're not really in control. You're just distracting yourself from the fact that deep down, you're lost. Think about how often this happens. You wake up determined to master the day. You write your tasks, you focus, you check boxes one by one. But then, a single unexpected problem derails everything. A conversation, an email, a sudden worry, and all that control collapses in seconds. Why? Because control that isn't rooted in God is fragile. It doesn't take much to shake it. One setback and suddenly you're drowning in anxiety again. And here's the dangerous part. When life seems to be working, when your routines are flowing and your plans are on track, you start to believe the lie. You start to think you've got it handled. You start to believe you don't need God because everything looks fine. That's why this is the most deceptive trap, because it doesn't look like failure. It looks like progress. But progress without God is just motion without meaning. You're running fast, but in circles. You're busy, but not fulfilled. You're disciplined, but not at peace. Have you noticed how exhausting it is to always be the one holding it all together? To carry the constant pressure of, if I stop, everything falls apart. That's not freedom. That's slavery to the illusion of control. And the reason it drains you is because you were never meant to hold it all. You were meant to surrender what you cannot carry to the one who can. Let me put it this way. Imagine trying to steer a ship without a compass. You can hold the wheel tightly. You can focus all your energy on keeping it straight. But if you don't know where you're going, your control means nothing. You'll end up lost, no matter how hard you worked. That's what life looks like without God. You're steering, you're pushing, you're sweating, but you're still lost because the compass is missing. And maybe you felt this too. The days when everything seems fine on the outside, but inside you're restless. The weeks when the calendar is full, but your soul feels empty. The moments when you've achieved balance, but not peace. That's the sign that something is off. Because true control doesn't come from managing every detail. It comes from surrendering the foundation. God doesn't ask you to abandon discipline or throw away structure. He asks you to put Him first, so that your discipline has purpose and your structure has strength. When He is the center, your plans stop being fragile. When He is the anchor, storms don't destroy you. When He is first, you stop confusing motion with direction. And this is where many people miss it. They think surrender means weakness, when in reality, it's the only path to true strength. They think putting God first will slow them down, when in fact, it frees them from the endless cycle of building and collapsing, striving and failing. Surrender is not losing control. It's finding the only control that actually matters. So ask yourself honestly, how much of your life is really under control? And how much of it is just you trying to convince yourself that the emptiness will disappear if you plan harder, if you push stronger, if you never stop moving? The truth is, control without God is like building a house of cards. It might look impressive, but one small shake is enough to destroy it all. But when God is first, your life gains stability. You don't collapse every time something unexpected happens. You don't drown in anxiety every time the plan changes. You don't live enslaved to perfection. Instead, you live anchored, even when storms come. That's the difference between the illusion of control and the peace of surrender. So yes, you can keep pretending you've got it all figured out. You can keep managing the details and ignoring the emptiness. But eventually, you'll have to face the truth. Life without God first is always fragile, always restless, always one step away from collapse. And once you realize that, the choice becomes clear. Keep holding the illusion, or finally let go and discover what real control feels like. Life is built on order. Whether you realize it or not, the sequence matters. A house doesn't stand if you build the roof before the foundation. A tree doesn't grow if the roots aren't planted before the branches. And your life cannot stand firm if you put everything before God and only leave Him the scraps of what's left. The principle is simple, but it's one most people ignore. Whatever you put first shapes everything else. Look at how most people live. They put work first because bills don't wait. They put relationships first because they don't want to be alone. They put comfort first because struggle feels too heavy. And then, when they're drained and exhausted, they try to sprinkle in a little bit of God at the end, hoping it will fix what's already broken. But God was never meant to be an afterthought. He is the foundation. Without Him at the center, nothing else can align. This is why so many lives feel scattered. It's not that people don't try hard. It's not that they don't want peace. It's that the order is wrong. You can't put money first and expect peace to follow. You can't put comfort first and expect growth to come. You can't put people first and expect identity to stay strong. When God isn't the first, the weight of life crushes everything else. Think about it. The first moments of your day set the tone for everything that follows. If the first thing you do is run to your phone, your mind is immediately filled with noise. If the first thing you chase is urgency, your whole day feels rushed. But if the first thing you do is turn to God, the chaos begins to lose its power. Your perspective shifts. Suddenly, the same problems don't look as heavy because you've already anchored yourself to something stronger than the storm. This is why Jesus said, "Seek first the kingdom of God, and everything else will be added." He didn't say seek it last, after your strength is gone. He didn't say fit it in when you have extra time. He said first, because first is what shapes the rest. When God is first, discipline becomes direction. Effort becomes purpose. Struggle becomes strength. But when God is last, even victories feel like defeat. And maybe you've been living this backwards. Maybe you've been putting your job first, thinking money will give you security. Or maybe you've been putting someone else first, thinking love will fix your emptiness. Or maybe you've been putting yourself first, thinking independence will give you peace. But the truth is, none of those things can carry the weight of being first. That place belongs to God alone. Let's be real. How often do you give God only what's left? You say a quick prayer when you're exhausted. You open your Bible when you feel guilty. You think about Him when life falls apart. But until then, He's pushed to the edges, waiting for the right moment. And yet, every time you put Him last, you wonder why everything else feels unstable. It's not that God abandoned you. It's that you placed Him in the wrong order. Order creates peace. When the order is right, your life doesn't feel as heavy. You still work, but work doesn't own you. You still love people, but people don't define you. You still build discipline, but discipline doesn't enslave you. Everything flows from the foundation instead of collapsing under its own weight. Think of it like a chain. Every link depends on the first. If the first link is weak, everything after it breaks. If the first link is strong, the whole chain can carry weight. That's what happens when you put God first. He strengthens the chain. He carries the weight you were never meant to carry alone. And here's the practical truth. Putting God first isn't about adding more to your schedule. It's about changing the order of your heart. It's deciding that before you run to your phone, you'll run to Him. Before you chase the world's approval, you'll seek His. Before you collapse under the day, you'll anchor yourself in His presence. It doesn't take hours. It takes priority. Because here's the reality. Life will always give you excuses. There will always be more work, more noise, more urgency. If you wait for the right time to put God first, it will never come. That's why it has to be a decision, not a convenience. So ask yourself, who or what has been first in your life? What have you been centering everything else around? And is it working? Or do you find yourself restless, drained, empty, no matter how hard you try? The answer is not to work harder. It's not to rearrange the surface. It's to change the order at the core. Because when God is truly first, everything else falls into place. Not perfectly, not without struggles, but with strength, peace, and direction that nothing else can give. Every human being is searching for identity. You may not say it out loud, but deep down you've asked yourself, who am I really? Am I defined by my work? By my achievements? By the approval of others? By the failures I've tried to bury? The truth is, without God at the center, identity becomes fragile. It shifts with circumstances, it bends with pressure, it breaks with disappointment. And when your identity is fragile, your direction in life becomes unclear. Think about it. If you build your identity on success, what happens when you fail? If you build your identity on relationships, what happens when people leave? If you build your identity on discipline, what happens when you slip? Suddenly, the foundation cracks, and you're left questioning your worth. That's why so many people live in constant anxiety. They're always afraid of losing what defines them. They're terrified of failure, terrified of rejection, terrified of slowing down, because without their achievements, they don't know who they are. This is the silent battle most people never talk about. They look strong, but inside, they're fragile. They seem confident, but their confidence depends on things they can't control. And that's the problem. When your identity is built on shifting ground, your direction in life is unstable. You spend years chasing goals, but you're never sure if they're the right ones. You achieve milestones, but you still feel lost. Because identity without God is like a compass without true north. It spins, but it never leads you home. But here's the shift. When God is first, identity is no longer fragile. It's not tied to circumstances or opinions. It's anchored in the one who never changes. You're not defined by what you achieve, but by who you belong to. You're not defined by how many times you fail, but by the fact that God calls you His. And when your identity is anchored in Him, direction becomes clear. You don't have to live guessing, wandering, doubting. You walk with purpose because you know who you are and whose you are. Let me make this practical. When you wake up in the morning, the world immediately tries to label you. It calls you a worker, a student, a parent, a boss, a struggler, a failure, a success. And if you're not careful, you'll wear those labels all day long, letting them decide how you think, how you act, how you feel. But when you start the day by placing God first, you remind yourself of a deeper truth. Before I am anything else, I am His. That identity gives you stability the world can't touch. And with stability comes direction. Suddenly, the choices that once overwhelmed you become clearer. Because you're no longer asking, what will make me look successful? What will make people approve of me? You start asking, what aligns with who God says I am? What aligns with the purpose He has for me? That simple shift changes everything. Think about how many regrets in life come from acting out of insecurity. People chase relationships just to feel loved. They chase money just to feel valuable. They chase status just to feel enough. But when you already know you are loved, valuable, and enough in God, you don't chase those things to fill a hole. You pursue them with clarity, knowing they're tools, not identity. That's the freedom God gives. Freedom from the endless chase. Freedom from the fragile self. And here's the paradox. When you stop trying to prove yourself, you actually become stronger. When you stop trying to find yourself in things that can be lost, you actually gain direction that lasts. Because with God, you're not living to build an identity. You're living from the identity He already gave you. And that identity cannot be shaken. So ask yourself, what has been defining you? Is it your success? Your failures? Your discipline? Your image? Be honest. How much of your life has been built on fragile ground? And has it worked? Or have you found yourself exhausted, chasing approval that never satisfies, chasing direction that always shifts? The answer is not to try harder. It's not to add more layers of discipline or build a stronger mask. The answer is to return to the foundation, to let God be the one who defines you. Because when you know who you are in Him, the noise loses its power. Criticism doesn't crush you. Failure doesn't destroy you. Success doesn't own you. And most importantly, you finally know where you're going, because you're walking in alignment with the one who created you. This is why so many people, even after achieving everything they dreamed of, still feel lost. It's not that their goals were wrong. It's that their identity was misplaced. But when God is first, you can walk through success without arrogance and failure without despair. You can move forward without fear because your identity is unshakable and your direction is secure. And that's the gift of putting God first. You stop wandering through life trying to invent yourself. You start walking in the life He already prepared for you. And that's where peace, strength, and clarity finally meet. Every day you fight battles most people can't see. From the outside, life may look normal. You smile, you work, you keep moving forward. But inside, there's a war. A war with your own thoughts, your own fears, your own weaknesses. And no matter how much you try to hide it, you feel the weight of it every single day. This is the invisible struggle, the one no one claps for, no one posts about, but the one that shapes your life more than anything else. You fight the voice that says you're not enough. You fight the temptation that whispers when no one is watching. You fight the pressure to keep up, the fear of falling behind, the shame of your own mistakes. And sometimes, it feels like you're losing more than you're winning. You wonder why the struggle never ends, why it always feels heavier than you can handle. And here's the truth. When God is not first, the fight only gets harder because you're carrying it alone. Think about it. Have you ever tried to fight your own thoughts with your own strength? You tell yourself, I'll be stronger tomorrow. I won't fall this time. I'll stay disciplined. I'll resist. And maybe you do, for a while. But then the pressure builds again, and the cycle repeats. Because willpower is limited. Discipline without God eventually runs dry. You weren't designed to fight invisible battles with only human weapons. That's why so many people feel trapped. They're not lazy. They're not weak. They're just fighting a spiritual battle with physical tools. They try harder, but harder isn't enough when the struggle is deeper than habits. Anxiety, emptiness, temptation, despair, these aren't just surface problems. They're symptoms of a soul that's running on empty. And maybe that's where you are right now. You've tried everything: self-help books, new routines, accountability partners, productivity hacks, and yet the struggle inside hasn't disappeared. Because the fight isn't only about behavior. It's about foundation. Until God becomes first, the war inside will always feel overwhelming. But here's the hope. When you put God first, the fight doesn't disappear, but it changes. You're no longer fighting alone. The same voices come, but they lose their power. The same temptations appear, but they don't control you. The same fears rise, but they don't own you. Because you're no longer relying on your own strength. You're anchored to His. Think of it like this. Imagine carrying a heavy weight by yourself. At first, you can hold it. But the longer you carry it, the weaker you get. Eventually, it crushes you. Now imagine that same weight. But this time, you're not carrying it alone. Someone stronger steps in, someone who was built to handle what you can't. That's what happens when God is first. He doesn't remove every weight, but He carries it with you. And suddenly, what once felt unbearable becomes possible. This is why Paul wrote, "When I am weak, then I am strong." It doesn't make sense until you live it. Because when you put God first, your weakness is no longer the end of the story. It's the place where His strength begins. The fight is still real, but it no longer defines you. The struggle is still present, but it no longer defeats you. And here's the beautiful irony. The invisible battles that once drained you become the very places where God builds you. The same temptations that used to break you become opportunities to rely on Him. The same fears that once paralyzed you become reminders that you were never meant to walk alone. What once felt like slavery becomes training. What once felt like defeat becomes preparation. But you have to make the choice. Because here's the danger. Without God, invisible battles don't just exhaust you. They shape you. They carve out habits of fear, patterns of failure, cycles of shame. And over time, you start to believe that's who you are. You stop seeing the fight as a battle, and you start seeing it as your identity. That's when people give up. Not because the fight was too strong, but because they forgot they weren't meant to fight it alone. So let me ask you, what's the invisible battle you've been fighting? The one that drains you at night? The one you're too ashamed to admit? The one you've tried to fix with your own strength? Be honest, has it worked? Or are you still trapped in the same cycles, carrying the same weight? The truth is, you can't win an invisible fight with visible tools. You need something greater, something deeper. And that's why God must be first. Because when He's at the center, the battle is no longer yours to fight alone. He gives you clarity when your mind feels clouded. He gives you strength when your willpower runs out. He gives you peace in the middle of the storm. So yes, the struggle will continue. Life will never be free of battles. But the difference is this: without God, every fight breaks you. With God first, every fight builds you. And that's how you stop merely surviving the invisible war. You start winning it. There comes a point when fighting harder isn't the answer anymore. You've tried willpower. You've tried structure. You've tried pushing yourself past exhaustion. And still, something inside keeps breaking. That's when you face the question you've been avoiding. What if the answer isn't in doing more, but in letting go? Surrender is a word that makes many people uncomfortable. We're taught to fight, to hustle, to grind, to never quit. To surrender feels like losing. But the truth is, in life's deepest battles, surrender isn't defeat. It's the doorway to freedom. Because the moment you let go of carrying everything alone and place it in God's hands, the weight begins to shift. The burden doesn't disappear, but it no longer crushes you. The fight doesn't end, but it no longer owns you. Think of how you've lived up until now. You've been the manager of every detail, the driver of every plan, the protector of every outcome. You've tried to control what people think, what tomorrow brings, what happens if you fail. That's why you're so exhausted. You've been carrying a responsibility you were never built to hold. God didn't design you to control the storm. He designed you to trust the one who calms it. And when you finally surrender, everything changes. Your mornings look different. Instead of waking up to the chaos of notifications, you wake up to His presence. You open your day not with fear of what's ahead, but with trust that whatever comes, you're not facing it alone. That single shift changes the entire rhythm of your life. The same challenges arrive, but they no longer drain you the same way. Because you've anchored your identity, your peace, and your direction in Him. But surrender can't stay abstract. It has to become a rhythm, something you live out daily. Otherwise, it remains an idea instead of a transformation. So let's get practical. Here are 3 ways you can start living this surrender. They are simple, but if you live them consistently, they will reshape the way you experience life. 1. Begin the morning in silence with God. The first thing you give your attention to shapes your entire day. If the first thing you see is your phone, you start your morning with the weight of notifications, the opinions of others, the chaos of the world. But if the first thing you do is pause in silence before God, you remind your soul of what truly matters. It doesn't have to be an hour. Start with 5 minutes. Sit, breathe, and acknowledge Him. Whisper a simple prayer. God, this day is yours. Let me. Picture it. Instead of waking up and rushing into anxiety, you open the morning with peace. Before the world invades your mind, you align it with God. That single habit doesn't just change your morning. It changes the filter through which you see the entire day. 2. Keep one prayer or scripture visible throughout the day. Your identity is constantly attacked by voices of doubt, comparison, fear, and pressure. That's why you need to anchor yourself to truth, not opinion. Write down one verse, one prayer, or even one sentence that speaks to your heart. Place it on your desk, your mirror, your phone background. Let it be the first thing you see when you feel yourself slipping. For example, imagine going into a stressful meeting, and instead of letting anxiety take over, your eyes fall on a simple reminder. Be still and know that I am God. Or when comparison hits as you scroll online, you see, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. These small reminders aren't magic, they're anchors. They pull you back when the storm tries to sweep you away. 3. End the day by releasing one specific weight. Surrender isn't only about how you start, it's about how you finish. Before you close your eyes at night, choose one thing that is weighing you down, your job, your finances, your family, your fear, and speak it out in prayer. God, I give this to you tonight. Then let it go. Refuse to carry into tomorrow what you were never meant to carry alone. Picture the difference. Instead of lying awake with your mind spinning, you learn to place the burden down. Instead of waking up already exhausted, you rise lighter because you didn't drag yesterday's weight into today. That's surrender in practice, not dramatic, but daily. And here's why these simple practices matter. Transformation doesn't come from grand gestures you do once. It comes from small decisions you repeat every day. It's not about complexity, it's about consistency. Because the truth is, the world is always pulling you in 1,000 directions. If you don't decide to put God first, everything else will claim that spot. But when you give Him the first minutes of your morning, the words that shape your day, and the burdens that weigh your nights, you're not just adding spiritual tasks to your list. You're reordering your entire life around Him. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, things begin to shift. The same problems don't feel as heavy. The same fears lose their grip. The same temptations lose their power. Because you've moved from fighting alone to walking with God. And that shift, from self-reliance to surrender, is what transforms not only your days, but your identity. So don't just agree with these words. Live them. Start tomorrow. 5 minutes of silence before God. 1 prayer or scripture in front of your eyes. 1 weight released at night. That's how surrender stops being a concept and starts becoming a lifestyle. And when you live this way, you'll discover what you've been missing all along. Freedom in the middle of the fight, peace in the middle of the storm, and strength in the middle of your weakness. Without God first, every effort turns into exhaustion. Every victory feels hollow. Every step forward feels like walking against the wind. But with Him at the center, even the battles that once broke you become places of growth. The emptiness that used to haunt you turns into space for His presence. The confusion that used to paralyze you becomes direction that guides your steps. And that's the decision before you now. You can keep carrying the weight, pretending you're strong enough, chasing after peace that never lasts. Or you can finally reorder your life and place God where He was meant to be. First, not last, not when everything else is finished, but first, because the order matters and the first shapes everything else. Think of your life like a foundation. You can decorate the walls, you can paint them, you can make the house look beautiful. But if the base is cracked, it won't matter how much effort you put into appearances, it will collapse. And that's what happens when God is not first. But when He is, the same storms that once shook you become storms you can endure. The same pressures that once broke you become lessons that strengthen you. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need flawless faith. All you need is the courage to start, to give Him your mornings, to release your nights, to trust Him with the battles you can't win alone. When you do that, your life won't suddenly become easy, but it will become anchored. And in a world that's constantly shifting, that anchor is everything. So make the choice today. Don't wait for the perfect moment, because it will never come. Begin now. Put God first, and watch how the same life begins to feel completely different. And if these words are speaking to you, don't leave this message behind. Subscribe now, not for numbers, not for algorithms, but to remind yourself that you're not walking this journey alone. Every new subscriber here is a person who decided to change from the inside out. A person who chose order over chaos, surrender over exhaustion, God over emptiness. And this is not the end, because the fight doesn't stop here, it transforms. And in the next message, I'll show you how to keep walking this path so that what God starts in you today doesn't fade tomorrow. Don't stop now. Watch the next video and keep building the life that begins where every real victory begins, with God first.